name is Nichols. I'm the branch manager of the King Public Library. We're celebrating National Library Week this year with you by having a special guest at the King Public Library. Hello, Paula.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Many of you will recognize this beautiful lady. This is Paula May. Paula has been in law enforcement since 1989.
Yeah.
And you were the King Police Chief.
For 10 years.
10 years. Well, Paula, now you found another career. I didn't know you were so talented.
Well, that remains to be seen, but thank you.
I do know, are a musician. You play the bass guitar, don't you?
And mostly piano, but we have a gospel singing group called Joyful Noise, and so we get to be busy with that, recording right now since we're not doing a lot of churches, but I'm enjoying working with that ministry.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with your book.
Well, thank you.
I enjoy true crime, but I really enjoy good true crime. I love Anne Rule. I love Jerry Blesso. And I've been reading your book, and I am hooked. And I have to tell you, you are a very good writer.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind.
No, it's an amazing book. You had me hooked. Now, the first chapter begins just off 421
Yes.
on the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Right, indeed. Yeah, up in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's where I became involved in the case. So I thought that's a good frame of reference. That's a good place to start. And it was a really unique situation with the extreme weather.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Friday afternoon. Everybody was, trying to head on out of the office and so forth. But we got the call that a body had been found. And it was the body of a nude man who had been murdered, and his bare feet were sticking up out of the snow. And he probably would never have been found except that a survey crew who was working right there near the intersection of 421 and the Blue Ridge Parkway was searching, I believe, for a landmarker in the ground, and was looking down and walking through those woods and saw the bare feet sticking up out of the snow. So they, of course, called that in immediately, and I was dispatched along with other deputies to the scene.
I could feel the coldness around you.
Good, because that was a really critical factor that day.
You usually had clothing that you kept with you, that you would take to a crime scene, but you hadn't cleaned it from the previous crime
Right.
scene.
Right.
So you had to go, and you were getting snow up to your knees, and you had borrowed a pair of thin gloves.
Right.
And the scene has you walking up to the crime scene, and that moment just took me to the story. You're a very good storyteller. Have you ever been told you're a good storyteller?
I am. I've always loved to write. It's been kind of a stress relief for me, not thinking much about anybody else ever reading my writing, But my high school English teacher told me that I write like I talk. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
But I like to be descriptive, and I like to appeal to all the senses, not just sight. So I like to describe how things smell and how things feel, and that helps, I think, the reader understand what's going through your mind. Like, if you're freezing to death, you can't feel your feet, it's hard to concentrate on things around you. So I really wanted to give a sense of the whole experience. So I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, the victim was a gentleman, and his name was Victor Gunnarsson.
That's correct.
And he was a Swiss national.
That day, when we found the body, we had no idea who he was. We did know that we didn't have any current missing persons report in our county, and we couldn't find any matching the general description in surrounding counties. So we broadened our search to the region and statewide. And so it took a few days for us to positively identify him as Victor Gunnarsson. Now, the body was nude, but he, except for a watch, and it was a signet ring, was not his initials, but it was unique, and he had a gold colored watch on as well. And so Kay Whedon in the book, who I'm sure you've met, in the book, was able to identify the jewelry because she had just looked at it the last time that she was with him. They had discussed, in fact, his jewelry. And so when we found a matching description in Rowan County of their missing person who had incidentally been reported about 3 weeks earlier, we felt like it was a strong probability that that was Victor Gunnarsson. And then working with Interpol and some other international organizations, which was my first time really working together with them on a case, they were able to provide us things like dental records and fingerprints.
Now, Victor Gunnarsson had a story of his own.
So when we identified him, then we began to learn who he really was. And so that ramped up the intensity of the investigation, just for the simple fact that he was a Swedish citizen. But not only that, he had actually been arrested for the assassination of Prime Minister Olof Palme in 1986. So he had been arrested because he was in the area and his political opinions were in opposition to the Prime Minister's. And just some general circumstantial evidence, frankly not a lot that we would have made an arrest on, in my opinion, but they did arrest him, and the Prime Minister was shot at close range while he and his wife were walking home from a movie. So his wife got a good look at the shooter. So when they presented her with a lineup, she was unable to pick Victor Gunnarsson or anyone else out of the lineup at that time. So they released him. He sued the government for false arrest and obtained a small settlement, and relatively speaking, and when the media attention got to be so much for him and his family there, he decided it was best if he would leave, so he fled to the United States to seek political asylum.
Oh, that's so interesting. And this story has many twists and turns.
Many.
But it leads us to a character. And this person's name was Lamont Claxton Underwood, or as his friends like to call him, LC.
Right.
Now, LC had a very, very neglectful, sad childhood, didn't he?
He did, and I actually, as we began to go back and look at his childhood from birth on, it was really tragic. And I mean, I really hurt for the little boy. I can't stand the thought of children being abused and neglected. But the extent, what he had gone through, no child should ever have to go through.
No.
But he and his sister, they were abandoned by both of their parents. While they were with their parents, they were just often set on a street corner to take care of themselves. And I'm talking like his sister was a toddler. He was like 3. And left to their own devices when their parents abandoned them. Eventually, they were dropped off at an uncle's house. And he was physically and mentally abusive to the children. To LC, there were many instances, and some are shared in the book, where he belittled him and just humiliated him, made him put on his sister's dress, for instance, and go outside where all his friends would see him and have him sweep the porch or whatever.
Oh, and stuck a pacifier.
And put a pacifier in his mouth.
Oh.
And I met Uncle George.
Oh, I don't think he was a nice person.
Anybody who could be mean to a child is not a nice person.
He wasn't.
But he was forthcoming with us. He did agree to talk with us, and he invited us to his home, and we sat there and talked with him. And he had a lot of complaints. I think the children were probably more than he and his wife were really committed to handling at the time.
They had a son of their own.
And he was Lamont's age. But they eventually took them to the children's home in Winston-Salem, where they grew up, and at the age of 18, I think the day he turned 18, Underwood moved out of the children's home.
And George didn't want them back.
They did not go
No.
back. Even if he had, I don't think they would have gone back there. But there was a couple, a man and wife at the children's home that Lamont became close to, that stayed in his life, you know, for several years and well into adulthood, that he was attached to. But that was the closest thing to really any parental figure that he had.
Right. Now, most of the story and the crime crime scene, another crime scene takes place in Salisbury, North Carolina,
Right.
which is about 30 minutes from here.
From here, yeah, it's very, very close to here.
Mhm.
It was about 2 hours from my jurisdiction in Watauga County at the time.
That made this book more fascinating.
Yes.
It was local, and I don't remember any of this happening, but I just find all of this intriguing. I really felt like you are writing a story that I just want to hang on to each little bit about. You've got just a few things of humor in there, but nothing, insensitive or anything like that. But it helps because, for instance, when I read the book last night, I got up this morning, the first thing I wanted to do was have my coffee and read the book again. I just can't stop. It's one of those page turners that you don't want to put down. But then we come to Kay Weldon.
Whedon. Yes. Yes.
And she's a teacher?
Yes, she's a high school English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
She was at the time, and working at a local high school there. And in fact, Underwood was a school resource officer working with Salisbury Police Department, and he was at another nearby high school working. So they were both in the high school. Kay, who is a good friend of mine now, because as you can imagine, having gone through this with someone, and it's these things occurring over such a long period of time, even after the homicides took place, and all the investigation to follow, and perhaps just me being a woman and being an investigator, so involved with the case, I tried to be there for her, someone to reach out to that would, be in a situation where I could understand, at least some of what she was going through. And she has really suffered since she met Underwood for a lot of different reasons. But now she's fully supportive of the book, and she is ready to use it for something positive. And she's become really strong. She's a survivor. I'm really proud of her, but she has been through a lot because of this case.
Kay suffers a lot because there's more than one murder that takes place in this book.
Yes.
It's very personal. But now I want to talk about you in this book.
All right.
I have to tell you first, the first time I ever saw you, the city and John Cater, the former city manager, were having interviews in the Shelton room here at the library.
Okay.
And all day long, I saw all these nice-looking gentlemen in suits come into the library, ask me, where am I supposed to go? And we pointed directions for them. And they all looked very nice. And then, that afternoon, I see this beautiful blonde lady coming in, and she has a confidence that you can just see. And the way she was just burying her body, and you looked self-assured, confident, strong, and smart.
Oh, wow.
And when you went down for those interviews, I just had to take my arm and go like that and say, yes.
Oh, that's funny. I never knew that.
I remember telling John Cater that one time, and he laughed at me. And he said, we've made the right choice with Paula. But it was just, it's important for women, and especially young girls, to have role models. And I think you're the type of role model that for the 10 years you worked as police chief here in King, you really contribute to providing that type of role model for children, for little girls to see what they can aspire to be. But in the book, my goodness, you were savvy. And you were highly thought of by the other detectives, the FBI agents, and you were very good. In fact, LC, who is Lamont Claxton Underwood, his friends like to call him LC, his attorney met you at the courthouse steps one day. And he said, well, if it isn't Watauga County's ace detective.
Yeah, I think there was a little sarcasm there, but yeah, that's what he said.
But should we talk about who the killer is in the book, or should we leave it to our readers to wait and read the book?
Let's let them read about it. The suspect in the case is, or a suspect is, introduced very early in the book.
Yes.
So I wanted them to get a good sense of his personality as it was uncovered to me. We had a really good, strong investigative team, and everything that happened, all the success was a result of teamwork. You know, it wasn't just me. I was the lead detective in the case because it was my jurisdiction, and I was a detective on call. But Steve Wilson was assigned to assist the case from the bureau in our region, and then Don Gale was the special agent that was assigned to assist in Rowan County, and Terry Agner, the lead detective in their homicide there, that was so intertwined with our case that the four of us became a team. And we got along really well. We did not always agree, and it was, as you read the book, you'll probably see four very distinct personalities that made up our team, but each person brought a lot to the team. I'd have to say Don Gale probably was the most creative, and he would come up with some off-the-wall ideas, and some of them I would roll my eyes at, you know, and make fun of him. But then one of the best ideas that he had in the case was airing the threatening anonymous phone call recordings that Kay Wheaton had been receiving, and that identified an accomplice in the case for us. So that was really, it did. It was very helpful, very impactful. So it was fun working with them. As a particularly young investigator at the time, I think I'd been in investigating serious crimes for about 6 years at that point, so I was pretty young. It's interesting to work with a group of men, including those who have more experience or less experience than you. So the dynamics are different. I was the first female sworn officer at Watauga County Sheriff's Office, as well as being the first police chief that was female here in King. So there's a little bit of groundbreaking to do. But you know, I have worked with some wonderful people. Many of them have become my mentors and helped me along the way. And I would love to fill that role, and I appreciate what you said. I would like to be a positive role model for anybody in law enforcement, but certainly for young girls. And I have a daughter, and I've always told her, you know, you can be anything that you want to be, and I've tried to drill that in her head, you know. But quick story: when she was small, and she got a lot of law enforcement. Her dad's a probation officer, but she asked me one day. I guess I was overdoing it a little bit, and she had seen a police officer, a male, and she said, "Mom, can boys be police officers?" And I said, "Yes, Caitlin. This day and time, boys can be anything that they want to be." So. Anyway, but I appreciate you saying that, and but it was a good investigative team, good teamwork. But we did a lot of traveling. They came up here a lot, but most of our work were the witnesses and the people that were known to the victim and the witnesses in Salisbury. So we spent a lot of time in Rowan County and the surrounding area.
Well, is there another book in the works?
I hope so. I've got some starts on 2 or 3 books, but I am debating a sequel on this one. It ends at a good concluding point. However, it was not the end of the story. And so I'm trying to determine if the interest is there, and if there is, you know, if people feel like that they need to know the rest of the story beyond what is in the book. The book, as you can see, I think it's 536 pages. When I first started out, it was well over 1,000. And I had pitched it to a publisher or two, and they're like, "It's way too long," and do some editing. And then over the years, you know, after I'd started, I would edit a little bit, and I would get busy and put it aside. But then as it began to, the case began to get TV attention, with first Forensic Files, which is season 10, episode 39, and you can watch that on YouTube.
I'm going to watch that.
And then just this past January, it was featured on The Dead of Winter on Investigation Discovery, the IDTV channel. And as that happened, then the publishers became interested. And Wild Blue Press had offered me a contract to publish the book. And so they've been awesome to work with, and that's the result.
Well, it's a wonderful book. And Paula has graciously donated a copy to the library, and we're looking into getting the ebook from Wild Blue Press to place on our Overdrive platform. So we hope we'll have that available for our readers who enjoy reading our digital content on Overdrive through the library's website. Paula, it's been wonderful talking to you. I'm hoping we might have some questions. Gretchen?
Not yet, but we have gotten some comments of break those glass ceilings, girl. And your tagline should be Paula May, Ace Detective.
Oh.
We do have a viewer from South Carolina and one from India watching as well.
Oh, well, hello. Awesome, thank you for watching. The book is available on at wildbluepress.com and Amazon, of course, but we sure love our local libraries.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. We miss our patrons. We miss being able to help people in the library, but we do have a variety of digital content available at nwrl.org. If you need a library card, there is a place on the website where you can get a temporary card, and we'll help you with that. But you can download books from Overdrive, children's books from NC Kids. We have Ancestry.com that you can use for free at home. And we're working on a few other platforms that we're going to try to get for our readers as well. Paula, it was wonderful having you here. Thank you so much. And we will be purchasing some more books. In fact, you mind if after we open, we keep copies here to sell to the public should they want a copy?
Oh, that would be wonderful. I'd be happy to help with that. Yes,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
The book is available right now from Amazon.com. And the book, First Degree Rage, The True Story of the Assassin of Obsession and Murder, is available by ebook on Amazon, or you can have it shipped directly to your home.
Yep. We've got a request to do a signing when that happens, when we can have people in.
We will do that.
And I think one of the main characters in the book would also, excuse me, Miss Kate Wheaton, I think she would also like to come. So that would be great, and would be available to ask her questions as well.
Oh, I can't wait, because there are so many terrible things that happen to this woman, and she has to be a stronger person for it.
She's definitely a survivor.
I don't want to give away too much. I do want to let my book club friends know that although we can't meet physically at this time, I'd like for those of you who can to go ahead and order the book or download the ebook from Amazon, because this is going to be our next read after we have our next meeting. Thank you all for viewing us at the King Public Library. Be safe out there.
National Library Week.
And thank you for viewing this during National Library Week at the King Public Library.